Hey there, and welcome to This Explainer. Let's be real for a second. If you're tuning in right now, there is a very good chance you are feeling completely exhausted or maybe just deeply confused by the sudden behavioral shifts in the preteens in your life. Honestly, you are in the exact right place. Today, we're going to unpack the fascinating and sometimes frustrating mystery of the changing adolescent brain. We're going to make sense of all this neurological chaos together, I promise.
Have you caught yourself lately staring at your kid, wondering where on earth did my calm child go? Maybe yesterday they were this easygoing, agreeable kid, and today they're suddenly quick to anger, crying over things that seem completely tiny to you, and then, no joke, 5 minutes later they're laughing like absolutely nothing happened. If you're feeling totally overwhelmed by this emotional whiplash, trust me, it is incredibly jarring.
So let's do a quick mental checklist together. Are you seeing sudden tears over incredibly small requests like, just asking them to set the table? How about epic door slamming after a lighthearted joke that they would have found hilarious literally just last month? Or maybe you're noticing some really impulsive, risky decisions with their friends. If you are sitting there nodding and mentally checking these boxes, let me reassure you right now, you are absolutely not alone.
Okay, so let's dive right into this. Here is our roadmap to get you from overwhelmed to empowered. We'll start with the preteen brain mystery, then look at the captain versus the alarm bell. After that, we'll cover the great neural renovation, decode those everyday meltdowns, and finally, we'll wrap up by building your very own scaffolding toolkit.
So, Part 1, the preteen brain mystery. The absolute most important thing to know is that what you are witnessing is healthy biological development. It is not intentional defiance. Let's see how this builds. Around age 8, a child's brain is at a nice, stable baseline. But then, between ages 11 and 14, the amygdala, which is basically our emotional center, it just hits its absolute peak maturity. Meanwhile, the prefrontal cortex, that's the logical part of the brain, doesn't fully mature until they're around 25 years old. To put that into perspective, that massive growth gap right there is exactly what explains the daily turbulence you're seeing.
Which brings us to Part 2, Captain versus Alarm Bell. To really grasp what that timeline actually means for your daily life, we have to look at the core conflict happening right under their skull. It's like two distinct control centers fighting for the wheel. On one side, we have what we'll call Amy the amygdala. This is the highly sensitive alarm bell. Amy processes fear and excitement and matures super early. On the other side is Cap the prefrontal cortex, our captain in training. Cap handles logic and impulse control, but matures dead last. And this brilliantly illustrates why the alarm bell is just blaring so loudly, while the captain who should be logically steering the ship is still, just in training.
Let's move on to Part 3, the great neural renovation.
So, behind this whole clash of characters is a genuinely fascinating biological process happening called synaptic pruning. During early childhood, the brain actually overproduces this massive web of neural connections so kids can learn rapidly. But as they hit adolescence, the brain needs to get efficient, so it starts this massive cleanup process. It physically prunes away any unused connections and strengthens the heavily used ones by coating them in a substance called myelin. This is all to make the brain incredibly fast and efficient for adulthood. To paint a vivid picture of what this actually feels like, just imagine trying to completely rewire and remodel your entire house while you're actively trying to live inside it. It'd be crazy, right? You'd have exposed cut wires, half-finished rooms everywhere, and new pathways you haven't even tested yet. Well, that is exactly what is happening inside your preteen's head. It's a state of temporary neurological chaos. So when they act stunningly mature one minute and then shockingly childish the very next, it's because their brain development isn't some straight, smooth line. It is an active, messy, chaotic construction site.
Oh, and it gets wilder, because throwing absolute fuel on this construction fire is dopamine. It's actually incredible. During these years, reward sensitivity just spikes. In their brain chemistry, the immediate excitement of something mathematically outweighs any future risks. Like peer approval literally registers as a survival need. So they aren't being reckless just to drive you crazy. This is actually nature's wild way of wiring them to leave the nest, build independence, and form those essential outside social bonds.
All right, Part 4, Decoding Everyday Meltdowns.
Let's take all this heavy brain science right back to the arguments happening in your living room. Say your kid has a massive meltdown just over hearing the word no. Well, amygdala, the amygdala, isn't just a little disappointed. It's treating that social exclusion as a literal physical threat. What about impulsive decisions? That's simply because Cap's logical brakes literally aren't fully installed yet to stop the immediate thrill.
And when they completely overreact to a seemingly tiny comment, that amplified emotional processing is 100% genuine. The pain they feel is incredibly real to them, even if it looks totally disproportionate, from an adult's perspective.
Which leads us perfectly into part 5, your scaffolding toolkit.
So the crucial point is this. Since your child's prefrontal cortex is very much still under construction, your job as a parent is to provide some temporary scaffolding. Basically, you are lending them your mature brain until theirs is ready to take the wheel. So let's run through a highly actionable 6-step toolkit that you can actually start using tonight.
Steps 1 and 2 are to co-regulate and name it. Before anything else, you absolutely must calm your own nervous system. Lower your voice, slow your breathing down. Calm is contagious, and you literally cannot fight a neurological storm with another storm. Then, once you're calm, gently label their emotion. Try saying something super simple like, "You seem really frustrated right now." It sounds basic, but it's pure magic. Just putting words to the feeling is the very first step in pulling their brain right out of that amygdala hijack and re-engaging those logical pathways.
Okay, this next step is huge, and it's a mistake we all make. You have to pause the logic and wait for the storm to pass. We always try to lecture kids while they're crying or yelling. But during a full-blown meltdown, their brain is biologically incapable of listening to logic. The alarm bell is just ringing way too loudly. You have to wait. Trust me, logical conversations and teaching moments are only going to work 20 to 60 minutes after the emotional storm has entirely ended.
Now, what's really interesting is how a tiny shift in your phrasing actually changes their brain chemistry. Barking absolute commands, like "do your homework right now," that just triggers the amygdala to resist authority because it wants to protect their growing independence. But if you swap that out and offer limited choices like, "Hey, do you want to start your homework now or in 30 minutes?" you totally bypass that alarm and engage CAP instead. You're actually forcing their brain to practice decision-making, which builds that vital neural muscle.
Wrapping up the toolkit with steps 5 and 6, once everyone is fully calm, you want to reflect together. Ask open, non-judgmental questions like, "Hey, what were you feeling in that moment?" This actively exercises that developing prefrontal cortex. And lastly, protect their sleep like it's a non-negotiable. Remember that whole synaptic pruning process we talked about? Well, the physical rewiring and strengthening of their brain happens primarily while they sleep. If they aren't sleeping enough, it directly weakens their ability to self-regulate the very next day.
So on those really hard days, I want you to remember this phrase. I am the calm my child is still learning to build. It's development, not defiance. Your steady, safe presence right now is quite literally the physical foundation they are using to build the balanced, rational adult they are going to become tomorrow. But honestly, looking at all this fascinating science, it really makes you wonder if their adolescent brains are this remarkably malleable right now, what daily habits and environments are actively wiring our own adult brains today? Keep questioning what's under the surface.